module, Fundamentals of IAM Policies. This module lays the foundation for AWS Identity and Access Management by teaching students how to create secure, effective policies. You'll master the JSON structure of IAM policies and understand their core components and apply the principle of least privilege to provide AWS resources. And by the end of this, you'll be able to craft basic policies that ensure secure access, which will prepare you for advanced IAM configurations in any cloud environment on AWS. Now, the core components of an IAM policy. Firstly, IAM policies control access to AWS resources and actions. They act like a security system, deciding who can interact with services like S3 or EC2, ensuring only authorized actions occur. Think of them as key cards granting specific access to different parts of the building. Now, policies use JSON to define permissions explicitly. JSON's structured format is clear but demands accuracy to avoid errors that could block access or expose resources. It's a balance of simplicity and precision for effective access control. Now, the key elements include effect, action, resource, and condition. Effect sets whether the policy allows or denies. Action lists operations like S3 get object. Resource targets specific items like a bucket. And condition adds rules like time or IP restrictions for that extra bit of control. Also, policies allow or deny specific operations. An explicit deny always overrides an allow, which is critical for securing sensitive resources. For example, you might want to allow read access but deny write to protect data integrity. Now let's discuss types of IAM policies. Firstly, there is identity-based policies, which is attached to users, groups, or roles. They follow the entity, making them ideal for centralized access management. For instance, a policy attached to a developer group can grant EC2 access across multiple projects without changing resource settings, which is what we did in a previous lecture where we tied it to an S3 bucket. Then we have resource-based policies, which are tied to AWS resources, like S3 buckets. Now, these policies live with the resource, enabling scenarios like allowing another AWS account to access your bucket without altering user permissions, which is great for collaboration. Those are the two types of IAM policies. Now, there are some other ones that are beyond the scope of this course, and they're based in SCP policies and are great for large organizations. But again, I'm not going to go through those in this course. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples of JSON policy syntax. Now, the following identity-based policy allows the implied principal to list a single S3 bucket. And the implied principal, I mean whoever we attach this policy to, whether it's a user or, as we know, it could also be a group. Now, the following resource-based policy can be attached to an S3 bucket. Now, policy allows members of a specific AWS account, being that one, it's just 111.222, etc. Obviously just a practice account name, but if you're doing it for your account, you obviously put your AWS account in there. And to perform any Amazon S3 actions in the bucket, named Amazon S3 bucket demo. It allows any action that can be performed on a bucket of the objects within it. And because the policy grants trust only to the account, individual users in the account must still be granted permissions for the specified Amazon S3 actions. So let's go through the best practices for policy creation, and then we're going to go away and do a real live demo in the next module. First up, we should enforce least privilege to minimize security risks and grant only the permissions needed for a task, like giving a developer read-only S3 access instead of full control, which we did in a previous video. This reduces the chance of accidental data leaks or misconfigurations. Should use AWS managed policies for common scenarios. Policies like AWS S3 read-only access, which again we saw in a previous video. They're pre-built and they're maintained by AWS, which saves you time and reduces errors compared to writing custom policies from scratch. Should version and audit policies for ongoing compliance. Versioning tracks policy changes, while tools like IAM Access Analyzer help audit for compliance with standards like GDPR, ensuring policies stay secure and aligned. And finally, prefer managed policies over inline for scalability. Managed policies can be reused across multiple users or roles, unlike inline policies, which are embedded in a single entity, making them easier to manage in large or growing AWS environments. Okay, the next video we'll go through a demonstration and we're going to put a policy in place. I'll just briefly go through what we are going to do. Firstly, we are going to create a new policy in the IAM console, and I'm going to write a JSON policy for S3 read-only access, or possibly use an AWS one. We'll work that out when we get there. And just to allow reading of a specific bucket. And then we're going to attach the policy to a user, and we're going to test that out. So we're going to do that in the next lecture, as I said. So I'll see you there.